"Can I clean for food?" a desperate mother whispered through the storm, clutching her twin daughters before a millionaire CEO's mansion. Her plea struck Ulysses Thorne's heart, unraveling memories of his lost daughter. Little did they know, their lives would intertwine in a journey of healing. Before diving in, comment where you're tuning in from and rate this heartfelt tale from 0 to 10 at the end. Enjoy. Rain lashed against the cobblestone driveway, a relentless curtain that blurred the world beyond the towering iron gates of the Thorne estate. Tessa Harrington stood trembling, her brown hair plastered to her pale face, clinging to her twin daughters, Fiona and Freya, who shivered in her arms. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the Gothic spires of the mansion, which loomed like a silent sentinel against the storm's fury. Tessa's thin jacket offered little protection, and the girls' tiny frames, wrapped in mismatched sweaters, pressed closer as thunder rumbled. Her heart pounded, not from the cold, but from the weight of desperation that had driven her here. She had no money, no shelter, only a rusted van that had broken down weeks ago. With a trembling finger, she pressed the intercom button, her voice cracking as she spoke. "Please, I don't want charity, but can I clean your mansion for a plate of food for my daughters?" The wind howled, swallowing her words, but she stood firm, her resolve fiercer than the storm. Fiona whimpered, clutching a beaded wooden bracelet, identical to one Freya wore, their small hands gripping Tessa's sleeves. The gates remained silent, and for a moment, Tessa feared they would be turned away into the night. Inside the mansion, Ulysses Thorne sat in the dim glow of the security room, his sharp blue eyes fixed on the monitor. At 38, the CEO of Thorntech had built an empire, but the man on the screen looked hollow, his jaw tight with unspoken grief. The image of Tessa and her twins flickered, rain streaking the camera lens, yet he couldn't look away from the bracelets glinting on the girls' wrists. They were identical to the one he had crafted for his daughter, Lily, before a car accident stole her 4 years ago. His breath caught, memories flooding back. Lily's laughter, her tiny fingers threading beads with him on a sunny afternoon. Ulysses's hand hovered over the intercom, hesitation warring with a strange pull in his chest. The girls' pale faces, so like Lily's, stirred something he had buried deep. He pressed the button, and the gates groaned open, a mechanical wheeze that echoed in the storm. Tessa's silhouette moved forward, clutching her daughters, and Ulysses rose, his polished shoes clicking on the marble floor as he headed to the foyer, steeling himself for what came next. Tessa stepped through the gates, her boots squelching on the wet stone, her arms tightening around Fiona and Freya as they entered the shadow of the mansion. The grand oak doors swung open, revealing Ulysses, his tall frame outlined by the chandelier's faint glow. His face was unreadable, but his eyes lingered on the twins, who clung to their mother, their golden curls damp and tangled. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice clipped, yet betraying a tremor. Tessa straightened, her chin lifting, despite the exhaustion in her bones, and replied, "Just food for my girls, sir. I'll clean, scrub, anything you need, but please, just a meal." The sincerity in her voice cut through the opulent silence, and Ulysses's gaze softened, though only for a moment. He stepped aside, gesturing to a dimly lit corridor, and said, "Come in. The children need to eat." Tessa hesitated, wary of this stranger's kindness. But the warmth of the house beckoned, and she guided her daughters inside, their small footsteps echoing in the vast hall. The corridor led to a modest guest suite, its walls lined with faded tapestries and a single oil lamp casting long shadows. Ulysses followed at a distance, his hands clasped behind his back, watching as Tessa set the girls on a plush velvet chair. Without a word, he disappeared, only to return minutes later with a tray of steaming chicken soup, warm bread, and a small bundle of clothes, 2 tiny sweaters, and soft socks for the twins. Tessa's breath hitched as she took the items, her fingers brushing the wool, and she whispered, "Thank you. We won't be a burden." Ulysses nodded, his expression unyielding, and turned to leave, his polished shoes clicking up the marble staircase. Fiona and Freya sipped the soup slowly, their pale cheeks flushing with warmth, while Tessa knelt beside them, brushing damp curls from their faces. The bracelets on their wrists caught the lamplight, and Tessa noticed Ulysses's lingering glance before he vanished, a flicker of pain in his eyes she couldn't place. Upstairs, Ulysses retreated to his study, a cavernous room, lined with leather-bound books and a single framed photo of Lily, her smile frozen in time. He sank into a leather chair, clutching the frame, his fingers tracing her face as the storm raged outside. The bracelets, those damned bracelets, had torn open a wound he thought he'd sealed. Lily had loved crafting them, her tiny hands threading beads while humming off-key tunes. The twins' bracelets, identical in every detail, felt like a cruel echo of her presence. His palms trembled, and he pressed the photo to his chest, whispering, "Why does it feel like you're here?" Below, Tessa tucked Fiona and Freya into a spare cot, wrapping them in the gifted sweaters. She sat on the floor, her back against the wall, watching their steady breathing. The mansion's silence was heavy, broken only by the distant patter of rain, and Tessa wondered what kind of man lived in such a place, alone yet moved by their plight. As the night deepened, Tessa rose, gathering the empty soup bowls, her movements careful to avoid waking the girls. She slipped into the corridor, pausing under a stained glass window where moonlight cast fractured colors across the floor. The open gates still loomed behind her, but she wouldn't return to the storm. Not yet. She bowed slightly, a gesture of gratitude to the empty hall, and murmured, "Thank you for letting us stay." No answer came, but upstairs, Ulysses stood on the landing, his hand gripping the cool banister, his eyes fixed on the closed guest room door. The twins' soft breathing reached him faintly, a sound that both soothed and shattered him. He turned away, retreating to his study, where the storm's rhythm matched the turmoil in his heart. Tessa returned to the room, curling beside her daughters, her mind heavy with questions about the man who had let them in. The mansion, grand yet hollow, held secrets she couldn't yet fathom. But for now, her girls were safe, and that was enough. The storm's fury had subsided by dawn, leaving a misty haze over the Thorne estate, where dew clung to the manicured lawns and the mansion's windows gleamed with fresh rain. Tessa stirred from her uneasy sleep on the cot, her arms still wrapped around Fiona and Freya, who breathed softly in the borrowed sweaters Ulysses had provided the night before. She rose quietly, smoothing her rumpled clothes, and glanced at the empty soup tray, a reminder of the stranger's unexpected mercy. The guest suite felt like a sanctuary, its heavy curtains blocking the morning light, but Tessa knew they couldn't impose forever. She slipped out into the corridor, bowls in hand, intending to return them to the kitchen and perhaps start cleaning to prove her worth. The marble floors were cool under her feet, echoing her cautious steps as she navigated the vast house, her mind replaying Ulysses's fleeting look of pain. Fiona and Freya remained asleep, their beaded bracelets glinting in the dim light, symbols of innocence that had unknowingly pierced the CEO's armor. Tessa found the kitchen, an expansive room with gleaming appliances and a faint scent of lemon polish, and set the tray down, her hands lingering as she wondered about the man who lived in such isolation. She began wiping the counters, her movements efficient and silent, hoping this small act would secure another day of shelter. Upstairs, Ulysses had barely slept, his study chair creaking as he rose to face the new day, the photo of Lily still clutched in his hand. Ulysses descended the staircase, his footsteps measured and deliberate, the weight of the previous night pressing on his shoulders like an unseen burden. The mansion, usually a tomb of silence, now held faint echoes of life from the guest wing, stirring memories he had long suppressed. He entered the kitchen, pausing at the threshold when he saw Tessa already at work, her brown hair tied back and her sleeves rolled up as she scrubbed the sink with quiet determination. "You don't have to do that yet," he said, his voice low and edged with surprise. But Tessa turned, wiping her hands on her jeans, and replied, "I want to earn our keep, sir. It's only fair after what you've given us." Ulysses nodded, his blue eyes briefly meeting hers before darting away, and he moved to the counter, preparing a simple breakfast of oatmeal and fruit. The aroma filled the air, a comforting contrast to the storm's chaos, and Tessa hesitated before asking, "May I help with that?" He handed her a bowl without a word, their fingers brushing in a momentary connection that sent a subtle jolt through him. Fiona and Freya's laughter drifted from the corridor, the twins awakening with the energy only children possess, and Ulysses's expression softened imperceptibly as he set plates on the table. Tessa called them in, watching as they scampered to the chairs, their eyes wide at the food, and Freya whispered, "Thank you, mister," her small voice tugging at something deep within Ulysses. He poured milk for them, his actions mechanical yet tender, avoiding Tessa's gaze as memories of Lily's morning routines flooded back. As breakfast unfolded, the kitchen warmed with the twins' chatter, Fiona giggling over a spoonful of oatmeal, while Freya traced patterns on her plate with a finger. Tessa observed Ulysses from across the table, noting the lines of fatigue etched on his face, and she ventured, "This house is beautiful, but it must be lonely sometimes." Ulysses paused, his spoon hovering mid-air, and replied curtly, "Work keeps me occupied," though his tone hinted at deeper solitude. The bracelets on the girl's wrists caught the light again, drawing his covert glances, and he rose abruptly, excusing himself to the study, with a murmured, "Eat as much as you need." Tessa sighed, clearing the dishes, her mind racing with questions about this enigmatic man who had opened his home without explanation. She guided the twins back to the guest suite, where they played with makeshift toys from their tattered bag, their innocence a balm against her worries. Meanwhile, Ulysses paced his study, the photo of Lily now back on the desk, her smiling face a stark reminder of what he had lost in that fateful accident. The twins' presence, so eerily reminiscent, both comforted and tormented him, forcing cracks in his carefully built walls. He glanced out the window at the clearing sky, deciding to let them stay a bit longer, if only to unravel the mystery of those bracelets. By midday, Tessa had ventured further into the house, dusting the foyer shelves with a rag she found in a closet, her efforts meticulous to show gratitude. The mansion's grandeur overwhelmed her, crystal chandeliers, antique vases, and portraits of stern ancestors lining the walls. But she focused on the task, determined not to overstep. Fiona and Freya trailed behind, their curiosity piqued by the vast spaces, and Fiona asked, "Mommy, is this a castle?" To which Tessa smiled and whispered, "Something like that, but we must be careful." Ulysses emerged from his study for a conference call, pausing when he heard the twins' soft voices echoing in the hall, a sound that pierced the usual quiet like sunlight through clouds. He approached quietly, observing Tessa's diligent work, and cleared his throat, saying, "There's no need to clean everything today. Rest if you must." Tessa straightened, meeting his eyes with quiet resolve, and responded, "Rest won't feed us tomorrow, sir, but thank you for the kindness." He nodded, a faint flicker of admiration crossing his features, and retreated, but not before leaving a stack of clean linens by the guest door, a subtle gesture of extension. As evening fell, the estate bathed in golden hues from the setting sun, casting long shadows across the polished floors, where Tessa prepared a simple dinner from pantry staples. The twins sat at the nook, coloring with crayons Tessa had packed, their laughter a melody that filled the empty spaces. Ulysses joined unexpectedly, drawn by the aroma and the unfamiliar warmth, and sat at the table's edge, his posture rigid, yet intrigued. "You've made yourself at home," he observed, and Tessa replied softly, "Only as much as allowed. We're grateful for every moment." He served himself a portion, eating in silence at first. But the twins' innocent questions, Freya asking about the big house, coaxed a rare smile from him. Memories of Lily's dinnertime stories surfaced, bittersweet and vivid, prompting him to share a neutral anecdote about the estate's history. Tessa listened intently, sensing the layers beneath his words, and as the meal ended, she cleared the plates, whispering to the girls, "Time for bed, little ones." Ulysses watched them go, the bracelets jingling softly, and felt a tentative compassion stir, a seed planted in the fertile soil of shared vulnerability. Night enveloped the mansion once more, the stars emerging clear after the storm, while Tessa tucked Fiona and Freya into the cot, singing a lullaby to soothe their excited whispers. She reflected on the day, Ulysses's quiet provisions, from breakfast to linens, hinting at a generosity born from hidden pain. In his study, Ulysses reviewed documents, but his mind wandered to the guest wing, the twins' presence evoking Lily's ghost in ways he couldn't ignore. He rose, placing a small bundle of fresh towels outside their door. No note attached, just a precise act of care. Tessa heard the faint footsteps and peeked out, finding the items, her heart swelling with cautious hope. She closed the door softly, curling beside her daughters, unaware that Ulysses lingered on the landing, his hand on the banister, listening to the hush of their breathing, a sound that began to mend the fractures in his soul. The following morning dawned crisp and clear, sunlight filtering through the guest suite's curtains as Tessa awoke to the soft rustling of Fiona and Freya stirring beside her, their small bodies warm from a night of undisturbed sleep. She glanced at the bundle of towels Ulysses had left outside the door, a quiet token that spoke volumes in the mansion's echoing silence, and she folded them neatly, her mind lingering on the man's retreating footsteps she had heard the night before. Rising with purpose, Tessa dressed the twins in their makeshift outfits, tying their golden curls with ribbons from her bag, and led them to the kitchen, determined to continue earning their place through diligent work. The estate hummed with subtle life now, birds chirping outside the windows as if celebrating the storm's retreat, while inside, the scent of fresh coffee wafted from Ulysses's early preparations. Tessa began scrubbing the breakfast nook, her movements fluid and efficient, blending gratitude with a fierce independence that had carried her through harder times. Fiona and Freya played nearby, stacking wooden blocks from a forgotten corner shelf, their laughter a gentle ripple in the vast space. Ulysses entered quietly, his briefcase in hand, pausing when he saw the scene, and he murmured, "You've been busy already," to which Tessa replied, without pausing her task, "It's the least I can do after your hospitality." He nodded, pouring extra cups of milk for the girls, his actions deliberate yet unspoken, as the bracelets on their wrists caught his eye once more, stirring a familiar ache. The twins thanked him shyly, Freya offering a toothy grin that mirrored Lily's in his memories, and Ulysses turned away, heading to his study with a heavier heart than before. As the day progressed, Tessa expanded her cleaning efforts to the living room, dusting ornate bookshelves lined with leather volumes that whispered of Ulysses's intellectual pursuits, her rag gliding over surfaces with care to avoid disturbing the fragile piece. The mansion's grandeur felt less intimidating now, its rooms absorbing the twins' playful energy as Fiona chased Freya around a velvet sofa, their giggles echoing like forgotten melodies. Ulysses, immersed in conference calls from his study, found his concentration waning, drawn by the unfamiliar sounds of life infiltrating his solitary routine. He ventured downstairs mid-afternoon, ostensibly for a glass of water, but lingered in the doorway, watching Tessa polish a silver frame, her brown hair catching the light in soft waves. "The house hasn't been this spotless in years," he admitted, his voice carrying a hint of warmth. And Tessa looked up, smiling faintly as she responded, "I'm glad to help. It's given us a haven." The twins approached him curiously, Fiona holding out a drawn picture of a flower, and Ulysses accepted it with a rare, tentative smile, tucking it into his pocket. That small interaction lingered in his mind as he returned upstairs, prompting him to prepare a discreet bundle later, a plate of cookies and warm milk. Left outside the guest door at dusk, no note attached, just a gesture born from stirring compassion. Tessa discovered it during evening rounds, her eyes widening in surprise, and she shared the treats with the girls, whispering, "Someone's watching over us." The act deepened her curiosity about Ulysses, a man whose kindness hid behind layers of reserve. Evening settled over the estate like a soft veil, the sun dipping below the horizon and casting elongated shadows through the tall windows as Tessa prepared a modest supper from the well-stocked pantry, her hands chopping vegetables with practiced ease. Fiona and Freya sat at the table, coloring vibrant scenes with crayons Tessa had unearthed from a drawer, their artwork bringing splashes of color to the otherwise muted room. Ulysses descended the stairs, drawn by the savory aromas and the twins' chatter. His tie loosened after a long day of virtual meetings that left him yearning for genuine connection. He paused at the kitchen entrance, observing the domestic scene with a pang of nostalgia for evenings once filled with Lily's presence, and he cleared his throat, saying, "It smells wonderful in here." Tessa turned, wiping her hands on a towel, and invited him to join with a simple, "There's plenty if you'd like some." He sat tentatively, serving himself a portion, and the meal unfolded in companionable silence at first, broken by Freya's innocent question about the stars, visible through the window. Ulysses responded softly, pointing out constellations he remembered from childhood, stargazing with Lily, his voice weaving tales that captivated the twins. Tessa listened intently, noting the subtle shift in his demeanor, and as plates cleared, she ventured, "Your stories are magical. They must come from somewhere special." He met her gaze briefly, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his features, before excusing himself to the study, leaving Tessa to ponder the man behind the facade. As night deepened, the mansion quieted, the twins tucked into bed with stories of far-off adventures that Tessa spun from memory, their eyelids drooping under the weight of a full day. She sat by their side, brushing curls from their foreheads, reflecting on Ulysses's evolving gestures, from towels to cookies, that hinted at a thawing isolation. The bracelets jingled softly as Fiona shifted in sleep, a sound that had unknowingly bridged the gap between stranger and host. Ulysses, in his study, stared at the drawn flower in his pocket, its crude lines evoking Lily's old sketches pinned to his desk, and he felt a reluctant pull toward the guest wing. He rose, selecting a few old storybooks from a shelf long untouched, and placed them outside the door, another silent offering to nurture the budding warmth. Tessa heard the faint placement and opened the door moments later, finding the books, her heart swelling with unspoken thanks. She leafed through one, smiling at the whimsical illustrations, and whispered to the empty hall, "You're more than you seem." The gesture solidified her resolve to bridge the distance, setting the stage for deeper conversations. Ulysses retreated to his room, the night's quiet amplified by the faint echoes of life below, a reminder that compassion's whispers could heal even the deepest wounds. 2 days had woven themselves into this tentative rhythm, Tessa's cleaning, transforming neglected corners, while Ulysses's small acts, milk, cookies, now books, wove threads of kindness into their stay. The twins flourished in the space, their play infusing the estate with vitality, Fiona and Freya's laughter chasing away shadows that had lingered too long. Ulysses found himself pausing more often, drawn to the sounds, the bracelets a constant echo of Lily that both pained and comforted him. Tessa, sensing the shift, prepared for the evening with renewed intent, knowing that tonight she would initiate a conversation to peel back the layers of mystery surrounding their enigmatic benefactor. The evening air in the Thorne estate carried a subtle chill as Tessa finished tucking Fiona and Freya into bed, their eyelids heavy from a day filled with exploration and play. The storybooks Ulysses had left providing the perfect lullaby tales that lulled them to sleep. She lingered by the cot, watching their chests rise and fall in unison, the beaded bracelets on their wrists a constant reminder of the fragile bond forming in this unexpected haven. With the twins settled, Tessa ventured downstairs, her footsteps soft on the marble floors, drawn to the faint light spilling from the study where Ulysses often retreated after dinner. The mansion's silence amplified her resolve, built over the 2 days of small gestures that had chipped away at her wariness, prompting her to seek a deeper understanding of the man who had opened his home without demand. She paused at the study door, knocking gently, and when Ulysses called out a muted "Enter," she stepped inside, finding him seated by the desk with a glass of amber liquid in hand, his eyes shadowed by the lamp's glow. The room smelled of aged leather and faint cigar smoke, bookshelves towering like guardians of forgotten stories, and Tessa took a seat across from him, her hands clasped in her lap as she began. "I wanted to thank you properly for everything, but I also sense there's more to your kindness than meets the eye." Ulysses met her gaze, his expression guarded yet intrigued, and he nodded slowly, setting his glass down with a soft clink that echoed in the quiet space. The fire in the grate crackled softly, casting flickering shadows that danced across their faces, heightening the intimacy of the moment. Tessa drew a breath, deciding to share first, her voice steady as she recounted the hardships that had led her here, weaving tales of loss and resilience into the night's tapestry. Tessa's words flowed like a river long dammed, beginning with her life as a dedicated nurse in a bustling hospital, where night shifts blurred into days until a supervisor's unwelcome advances shattered her stability, his whispers turning to demands that she reported, only to be dismissed by administration as fabrications. She described the humiliation that followed, the way colleagues averted their eyes in the halls, forcing her to walk away from a career she loved, leaving her without income or support in a world that demanded both. Ulysses listened intently, his fingers tracing the rim of his glass, the story resonating with his own buried pains as Tessa continued, revealing how the twins' father had vanished upon learning of the pregnancy, slamming the door on their shared apartment without a backward glance, abandoning her to face motherhood alone in a rusted van that became their nomadic home. The van's engine had sputtered to a halt during a frostbitten night, stranding them behind a gas station where Tessa sang lullabies over the roar of trucks, her voice cracking with exhaustion, yet fueled by unyielding love for Fiona and Freya. She spoke of the bracelet-making sessions with the girls, simple crafts from scavenged beads that brought joy amid despair, their tiny hands threading hope into each loop. Ulysses's posture shifted, leaning forward slightly, his blue eyes reflecting the fire's warmth as he absorbed her strength, a mirror to the resilience he had lost after Lily's death. Tessa paused, wiping a stray tear, and asked softly, "What about you? What shadows linger in this beautiful house?" The question hung between them, a bridge extended across the chasm of their solitudes, inviting Ulysses to cross into vulnerability. He hesitated, swirling his drink before responding in a voice laced with restrained emotion, drawing her deeper into his world. Ulysses's confession emerged haltingly at first, his words measured like steps on fragile ice. As he described Lily, his vibrant daughter whose laughter once filled these halls with unbridled joy, her love for beaded crafts, a shared ritual that bonded them, until a car accident 4 years ago ripped her away, while he was across the country sealing a business deal. He recounted the frantic call from his ex-wife, her sobs echoing through the phone as she explained the crash, a moment that shattered his world, and left him drowning in guilt for not being there, for prioritizing empire building over farewell hugs. The mansion, once a home, had become a mausoleum of memories, each room echoing with Lily's absence, her untouched nursery a shrine he avoided to stave off the waves of grief that threatened to consume him. Ulysses's voice cracked slightly as he mentioned the bracelets, admitting how seeing them on Fiona and Freya had frozen him at the gate, a cruel yet comforting echo of Lily's handmade treasures that stirred long-suppressed emotions. Tessa reached out instinctively, her hand hovering before withdrawing, her eyes filled with empathy as she whispered, "That pain sounds unbearable, yet you've let us in despite it." He nodded, a faint smile breaking through, acknowledging the strange attachment forming, her story of endurance inspiring a flicker of hope in his darkened heart. The conversation deepened, weaving their losses into a shared tapestry, where Tessa's quiet strength illuminated paths Ulysses had forgotten, pulling them closer in the study's intimate glow. As the fire dimmed, Ulysses felt a weight lift, if only slightly. The act of sharing forged an unspoken alliance. The clock struck midnight, its chimes resonating through the estate like a gentle reminder of time's passage. As Tessa and Ulysses continued talking, the barriers crumbling with each revealed truth that bound their fates. She shared lighter moments from her struggles, like teaching the twins to count stars from the van's roof, turning hardship into adventure, while Ulysses recounted Lily's fascination with flowers, planting seeds in the garden that now bloomed wild and untended. Their laughter mingled tentatively, a rare sound in the mansion, easing the tension as Tessa expressed admiration for his quiet generosity, the small gestures that had sustained them. Ulysses, in turn, praised her resilience, calling it a beacon in his shadowed existence, a force that reminded him life could mend even the deepest fractures. The connection solidified, no longer strangers but confidants, sharing the weight of secrets. And as the embers glowed low, Ulysses suggested, "Stay as long as you need. The house feels less empty with you here." Tessa nodded gratefully, her heart swelling with possibility, knowing this openness heralded healing for them all. She rose to leave, pausing at the door to say, "Thank you for trusting me with your story." And Ulysses watched her go, the study's solitude now laced with warmth rather than isolation. The night enveloped the estate in peace, the shared secrets planting seeds of trust that would grow in the days ahead. Dawn's light crept through the windows the next morning, illuminating the guest suite where Tessa awoke with renewed energy, the previous night's revelations fueling her determination to contribute more to the household. Fiona and Freya stirred, their playful energy bubbling as Tessa dressed them, the bracelets jingling like chimes of continuity from the emotional bridge built hours before. Downstairs, Ulysses prepared breakfast with a lighter step, the conversation lingering in his mind like a balm, prompting him to set extra places at the table in anticipation of shared meals. Tessa joined him, their eyes meeting with a new understanding, and as the twins chattered about dreams, the atmosphere hummed with subtle change, opening doors to further exploration of the mansion's hidden corners. The day unfolded with Tessa venturing into less frequented rooms, her cleaning efforts now infused with curiosity born from Ulysses's shared vulnerabilities, setting the stage for unexpected discoveries. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows the next morning, gilding the breakfast table where Ulysses arranged plates of fresh fruit and toast, his movements infused with a newfound lightness from the previous night's revelations that had bridged the gap between him and Tessa. Fiona and Freya bounded in, their golden curls bouncing as they climbed onto chairs, chattering about dreams of flying birds, while Tessa followed with a warm smile, her eyes meeting Ulysses's in silent acknowledgement of the trust they had exchanged. The meal unfolded in harmonious ease, Ulysses sharing a light anecdote about a childhood adventure that drew giggles from the twins, their bracelets jingling like tiny bells in the morning air. Tessa savored the moment, feeling the mansion's walls soften around them. No longer cold barriers, but welcoming embraces that hinted at deeper healing. As plates cleared, Ulysses headed to his study for calls, suggesting Tessa explore the upper floors for dusting. His tone casual, yet inviting, opening paths to the estate's hidden realms. Tessa nodded gratefully, gathering her cleaning supplies, her curiosity piqued by the untold stories lurking in the less trodden rooms, and she ascended the curved staircase, the twins trailing behind with playful steps that echoed softly. The upper corridor stretched before her, doors lining the walls like sentinels guarding secrets, and Tessa began with a guest bedroom, wiping down surfaces with meticulous care, her mind wandering to Ulysses's tales of Lily. Fiona and Freya played nearby, stacking pillows into forts, their innocence a counterpoint to the house's lingering melancholy. As she moved to the next door, slightly ajar, Tessa pushed it open, revealing a nursery painted in soft lilac hues, murals of clouds and birds fading on the walls, a space frozen in time that drew her in unwittingly. She stepped inside, her breath catching at the untouched bookshelf and stuffed animals waiting eternally, and spotted a pale blue pillow on the small bed, its seam torn and stuffing peeking out like a wound begging for mending. Tessa's fingers traced the pillow's fabric, a maternal instinct surging as she envisioned the child who once rested here. The room's poignant stillness, whispering of loss that mirrored her own struggles, yet felt profoundly deeper. She glanced back at the twins, absorbed in their game outside the door, and decided to repair the tear, pulling a small sewing kit from her pocket, her stitches careful and tender as if healing a piece of Ulysses's shattered heart. The needle wove through the material, each pass binding the edges with quiet determination, while memories of patching the girl's clothes in the van flooded her mind, blending past hardships with this act of unsolicited kindness. Fiona peeked in, asking curiously about the pretty room, but Tessa shushed her gently, focusing on the task that felt both intrusive and necessary in the mansion's evolving warmth. As she finished placing the pillow back neatly, footsteps echoed in the hall, heavy and purposeful, drawing nearer with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. Ulysses appeared at the threshold, his face paling then flushing with anger as he took in the scene, his voice sharp and edged like broken glass when he demanded, "What are you doing in here?" Tessa jumped, setting the sewing kit down hastily, her apology tumbling out in a rush. "I'm sorry, I didn't know this room was off limits. I saw the torn pillow and thought to mend it. I meant no harm." He stepped forward, his hands clenched at his sides, the air thickening with unspoken grief as he ordered, "You shouldn't be touching anything sacred. Leave now." Tessa bowed her head, gathering the twins and retreating down the corridor, her heart heavy with regret for overstepping, while Ulysses slammed the door behind her, leaning against it as waves of memory crashed over him. The nursery's ghosts swirled, Lily's laughter haunting the silence, amplifying his isolation in the wake of the intrusion. Night fell over the estate like a shroud, the moon casting silvery beams through the windows as Tessa paced the guest suite, Fiona and Freya asleep after a subdued dinner, her mind replaying Ulysses's fury that had shattered the budding harmony. She wondered if they had overstayed, the mended pillow now a symbol of unintended violation, yet her intentions had been pure, born from the compassion he had shown them. Ulysses, alone in the study, avoided the nursery at first, drowning in reports that failed to distract from the turmoil, his anger simmering into a reluctant curiosity about what Tessa had done. He rose, finally, ascending the stairs with heavy steps, pushing open the nursery door to find the pillow restored, its stitches precise and loving, a small note atop it reading, "I'm truly sorry for intruding. I only wanted to help mend what was broken." The words pierced him, tears welling unbidden as he sank to the floor, clutching the pillow against his chest, the tenderness of the repair echoing Lily's gentle spirit. For the first time in years, sobs escaped, quiet and cathartic, releasing fragments of grief he had locked away, the act transforming his rage into profound gratitude. The room, once a prison of sorrow, felt slightly less oppressive, the mended seam a metaphor for possible healing amid the pain. As dawn approached, Ulysses composed himself, placing the note in his pocket, his resolve strengthening to extend their stay, recognizing the light Tessa and the twins brought to his shadowed world. Morning light bathed the kitchen anew, Ulysses preparing coffee with deliberate calm, his face composed yet softened by the night's revelations. When Tessa entered hesitantly, the twins in tow, her expression apologetic as she began, "If we've overstepped, we'll leave today." He shook his head, pouring her a cup and saying evenly, "Stay another week. The house needs more cleaning, and truthfully, it's easier with someone here. The girls make it feel alive again." Tessa's eyes widened in surprise, accepting the offer with a nod, sensing the vulnerability beneath his words, a silent admission of how their presence soothed his loneliness. Fiona and Freya beamed, tugging at Ulysses's sleeve with questions about the garden outside, their enthusiasm pulling him from introspection. As breakfast ended, the twins dashed to the French doors, peering at the overgrown paths and wildflowers, begging to explore the untended grounds that Lily once loved. Tessa agreed, leading them out into the fresh air, their laughter ringing like chimes that drew Ulysses to the window, watching as they ventured into the garden, a space he had avoided but now felt compelled to reclaim. The girls' playful discoveries, chasing butterflies and naming blooms, infused the estate with vitality, coaxing Ulysses from his solitary world, hinting at the emotional shifts yet to come. The garden behind the Thorne estate sprawled untamed under the afternoon sun, ivy creeping along stone paths and wildflowers blooming in chaotic splendor. A once manicured haven now surrendered to nature's whims, since Lily's passing had robbed Ulysses of the will to tend it. Fiona and Freya burst through the French doors with unbridled joy, their small feet pattering on the flagstones as they darted toward the overgrown hedges, their laughter bubbling like a spring awakening after winter's frost. Tessa followed closely, her brown hair catching the breeze as she called out warnings to be careful, her heart swelling at the sight of her daughter's freedom in this verdant playground that contrasted sharply with the confined spaces of their past life in the van. The twins claimed the space instantly, Fiona plucking daisies to weave into crowns, while Freya chased a fluttering butterfly, their golden curls shimmering in the light that filtered through ancient oak branches. Ulysses watched from the window upstairs, his documents forgotten on the desk, the sound of their glee seeping through the glass and stirring memories of Lily's playful afternoons among the same blooms. He hesitated at first, drawn yet reluctant, but the pull grew stronger, compelling him to descend the stairs and step outside, his polished shoes crunching on gravel as he approached the scene. Tessa noticed him emerging, her smile tentative yet welcoming, and she remarked softly, "The garden suits them. It's like they've always belonged here." Ulysses nodded, his voice low as he replied, "It was Lily's favorite place. She called the fountain the Whispering Water, even when it stopped flowing years ago." The twins turned at his approach, Freya tilting her head curiously and declaring with childlike honesty, "You're the man with the sad voice, like someone missing a song." Ulysses froze momentarily, the nickname, Mr. Sad Voice, piercing his defenses. But Fiona giggled, tugging at his hand to join their flower picking, her innocence bridging the gap he had long maintained. As the afternoon unfolded, the garden transformed into a realm of wonder under the twins' influence. Fiona and Freya racing barefoot through the grass, naming each flower in their toddler lexicon while dodging sunbeams that danced like elusive sprites. Tessa sat on a weathered bench, sketching simple rhymes in the dirt with a stick, teaching the girls verses about blooming roses and hidden treasures, her voice melodic and soothing, amid the rustling leaves. Ulysses lingered nearby, ostensibly checking the overgrown vines, but his eyes followed the twins' every move. Their energy, a vivid echo of Lily's boundless curiosity that both ached and healed. Freya, in her exuberance, stretched toward a low-hanging apple on an ancient tree, her fingers grazing the fruit just out of reach, prompting Ulysses to step forward without thought, plucking the reddest one and offering it to her with a gentle, "Here, little one." The girl accepted it with wide eyes, then wrapped her arms around his legs in a spontaneous hug, murmuring, "Thank you, Mr. Sad Voice," her head resting against his knee in pure affection. Ulysses stiffened at first, the touch unlocking floods of emotion he had dammed for years, but he knelt slowly, patting her back with unpracticed tenderness that surprised even him. Tessa approached from the porch, flustered yet touched, and she pulled Freya back gently, apologizing. "I'm sorry, she likes to name people based on what she feels." Ulysses rose, his voice low and not unkind as he assured her, "It's all right. Children see truths we hide," his gaze lingering on Tessa with newfound softness. The moment lingered, Freya munching the apple contentedly, while Fiona joined in, calling him the same name with a grin that coaxed a rare chuckle from Ulysses, lightening the air with shared amusement. Evening shadows lengthened across the lawn as the group retreated indoors for supper, the garden's magic clinging to them like pollen. Fiona and Freya recounting their adventures with animated gestures that filled the kitchen with vibrant energy. Tessa peeled potatoes at the counter, glancing sideways at Ulysses, who, for once, didn't withdraw to his study, but lingered, helping set the table with plates and silverware. The twins' chatter about the whispering water fountain prompted Ulysses to share more about Lily, his words flowing more easily now, describing how she adored purple orchids and drew them on every surface, her wild affection turning the garden into a canvas of joy. Tessa listened raptly, her knife pausing as she responded, "That sounds beautiful, like the way I taught the girls to find beauty in little things, even during our hardest days in the van." Ulysses's brow furrowed with empathy, and he asked gently, "How did you endure it all, raising them alone after everything?" She shrugged lightly, slicing the last potato with steady hands, and explained, "Rosie's birth, well, the twins, happened in that van. Their first cries strong and defiant. That sound became my anchor through the storms." He watched her, admiration blooming in his chest like the garden's untamed flowers, her resilience inspiring him to open further, admitting, "You've reminded me that pain doesn't have to define us. It can fuel something new." Their conversation deepened over the meal, weaving threads of shared loss into bonds of understanding, no longer just host and guests, but souls connecting through mutual healing. As plates cleared, the twins yawned, curling up on the rug with dolls, their presence a catalyst for the growing intimacy between Tessa and Ulysses. A sudden rumble of thunder heralded the approaching storm that evening, dark clouds gathering swiftly and blotting out the stars as wind whipped through the garden, bending branches in ominous warning. Inside, the lights flickered uncertainly, the estate's grandeur no match for nature's fury, and Tessa gathered the twins close on the living room sofa, wrapping them in a knitted blanket against the chill. Ulysses joined them, carrying a lantern from the study, his face illuminated by its soft glow. As he sat nearby, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. Rain began pattering against the windows, building to a steady drum that drowned out the usual silence, until a crack of lightning plunged the house into darkness, the power outage sudden and complete. Tessa lit candles from a drawer, their flames dancing erratically and casting warm shadows across the room, transforming the space into an intimate cocoon amid the chaos outside. Fiona gasped softly, clutching her bracelet, while Freya nestled closer, whispering about the scary noise. prompting Tessa to begin a story of a brave hedgehog seeking shelter. Ulysses leaned in, his voice joining hers unexpectedly, adding details from Lily's favorite tales that blended seamlessly, their combined narration drawing giggles from the twins despite the storm's roar. The shared storytelling wove them tighter, vulnerability exposed in the candlelight, setting the stage for deeper confessions as the night wore on. The storm's rage intensified outside the Thorne estate, rain hammering the windows like insistent fingers demanding entry, while inside, the candle flames flickered resiliently, casting elongated shadows that danced across the living room walls and illuminated the faces gathered around the coffee table. Tessa continued her hedgehog tale with animated voices and exaggerated gestures. Fiona and Freya, rolling with laughter at the creature's futile attempts to fly with leaf wings, their giggles echoing through the darkened space like echoes of forgotten joy. Ulysses sat cross-legged on the rug, his usual reserve melting in the warm glow, adding whimsical details about the hedgehog's adventures that blended seamlessly with Tessa's narrative, drawing even deeper peals of delight from the twins. The power outage, far from an inconvenience, had forged an intimate bubble where time slowed, the outside world's fury contrasting sharply with the inside's burgeoning warmth. Fiona's nose wrinkled in mirth, a gasp escaping between chuckles, and Ulysses's breath hitched, the sound piercing him like an arrow from the past, identical to Lily's infectious laughter that once filled these very rooms. Tears pricked his eyes unexpectedly, blurring the candlelight, as he blinked rapidly, trying to compose himself amid the ongoing story. Tessa noticed the shift, her voice trailing off mid-sentence, and she asked gently, "Are you all right?" Ulysses swallowed hard, a single tear tracing down his cheek, and he confessed in a cracked voice, "I haven't heard that sound in 4 years. It's exactly how Lily used to laugh." The twins quieted, sensing the gravity, nestling closer to their mother, while Tessa waited patiently, her presence a silent anchor in the storm-tossed night. Ulysses drew a shuddering breath, the candle's steady flames mirroring the resolve building within him to finally voice the burdens he had carried alone. The confession poured forth like rain from the burdened clouds, Ulysses describing Lily's vibrant spirit, her 5-year-old curiosity that turned every day into an adventure, until the car accident snatched her away while he was ensnared in a distant meeting, oblivious to the tragedy unfolding. He recounted the ex-wife's frantic call, her words shattering his world mid-flight, the guilt of not being there to say goodbye gnawing at him like an unrelenting storm that refused to abate. The mansion had become his prison since work, a numbing escape where numbers and deals replaced the void left by her absence. But seeing Fiona and Freya, hearing their laughter echo Lily's, made him feel like drowning anew in waves of what-ifs and regrets. Tessa listened without interruption, her hand inching closer on the rug, offering silent solidarity as Ulysses's voice trembled, admitting how the bracelets had first frozen him, a ghostly reminder that both tormented and tantalized with hints of redemption. Freya, intuitive beyond her years, crawled into his lap tentatively, patting his arm with a small hand, whispering, "Don't be sad, Mr. Voice. We can share our laughs." Ulysses's arms wrapped around her instinctively, the touch unlocking more tears. But these were cathartic, washing away layers of isolation in the candlelit confessional. Tessa moved nearer, her shoulder brushing his, and she murmured, "Pain like that never fully leaves, but maybe it lightens when shared with someone willing to carry a piece of it." Their eyes met in the shimmering light, Ulysses seeing not just a struggling mother, but a woman forged in fire, choosing love despite her scars, the moment deepening their bond beyond words. The storm raged on, but inside, a quiet shift occurred, vulnerability forging strength as confessions bridged their souls. As the tale wound down and the twins' eyelids drooped, Tessa tucked them onto the sofa with blankets, their breathing evening into sleep's rhythm, leaving her and Ulysses in companionable silence, broken only by the rain's steady cadence. He draped a wool throw over Tessa's shoulders gently, his hand lingering a fraction longer, withdrawing with a newfound tenderness that spoke volumes in the dim light. They sat side by side, watching the candles burn low, Ulysses feeling an unfamiliar warmth bloom in his chest, delicate yet insistent, a risk he hadn't taken since Lily's loss, but now seemed inevitable. Sleep claimed Tessa eventually, her head resting on a cushion, Freya curled against her, the protective curve of her arm a testament to her enduring strength. Ulysses observed them from the shadows, a family forming without intention, and he turned off a distant lamp to preserve their rest, retreating upstairs, where dreams beckoned not as escapes, but as continuations of the evening's revelations. Morning broke with the storm's retreat, sunlight piercing the clouds as Ulysses descended to find Tessa brewing coffee, the twins still asleep, her smile tentative yet hopeful after the night's intimacy. He joined her at the counter, their conversation light at first, but the shared confessions had altered the air, paving the way for unforeseen challenges. Whispers of scandal began circulating online that day, a gossip blog igniting the fire with grainy photos, and a salacious headline accusing Ulysses of harboring a homeless maid for ulterior motives. The story spreading like wildfire across media outlets. Reporters swarmed the estate's gates by noon, microphones thrusting through the bars and flashbulbs popping like distant thunder, demanding answers about Tessa's background and the twins' presence in the millionaire's life. Tessa watched from behind curtains in horror, pulling Fiona and Freya close as questions flew. Whether she had trapped him, if the children were his, accusations of gold-digging stinging like fresh wounds. Ulysses, fury simmering beneath his calm exterior, stepped out to confront the horde, his voice steady and commanding as he declared, "This woman is the reason I remember how to breathe again, and if you dare slander her further, my lawyers will ensure you regret it." The crowd hushed momentarily, his fierce defense rippling through the airwaves, protecting Tessa in a public stand that deepened her gratitude and their connection. Inside, Tessa sat stunned, tears of relief mingling with surprise at his unwavering support, the incident cementing their alliance against external storms. Ulysses returned, his expression resolute, and he handed her a wooden box containing Lily's favorite book, The Adventures of Pinecone Bunny, saying softly, "You remind me of her love, fierce and unwavering. This is for the girls, and for you." Tessa traced the cover, her hand brushing his in a charged touch, the gesture symbolizing growing trust amid the chaos, setting the foundation for their evolving future. The scandal's flames licked higher in the days following Ulysses's public defense, tabloids splashing lurid headlines across front pages and screens, branding Tessa a cunning opportunist who had ensnared a grieving millionaire with her twins as bait. The estate's gates besieged by relentless reporters hungry for salacious details. Tessa retreated deeper into the mansion, shielding Fiona and Freya from the chaos outside, her heart pounding with fear that this intrusion would shatter the fragile sanctuary they had built. Yet Ulysses's fierce words echoed in her mind, a shield forged from his unwavering loyalty. He navigated the storm with calculated precision, fielding calls from lawyers and PR teams in his study, his voice steady as he orchestrated countermeasures against the slander, ensuring no falsehood went unchallenged. James Mallory, Ulysses's oldest friend and confidant, arrived unannounced one afternoon, striding through the foyer with the familiarity of years, raising an eyebrow at the transformed atmosphere, humming with the twins' distant laughter. They retreated to the study, flames crackling in the fireplace as James observed, "You look alive again, Alex. She's cracked through that shell of yours." Ulysses sighed, leaning back in his chair, and admitted, I didn't plan this, but the girl's laughter echoes Lily's, and Tessa sees me as whole, not broken. I want to be that man for her. James nodded sagely, advising, then step up. Grief can anchor or lift you. Choose the wings for once. The conversation lingered, bolstering Ulysses's resolve as he glanced at Lily's drawings on the desk, now joined by Fiona's flower sketch. Symbols of past and present intertwining. Tessa, overhearing snippets from the hall, felt a surge of hope amid the turmoil, knowing Ulysses's protection extended beyond words into action that redefined their bond. Evening brought a quiet respite as the reporters thinned, the estate reclaiming its serenity under a twilight sky. Ulysses finding Tessa in the guest room folding laundry, his presence filling the doorway with purpose as he extended the wooden box already gifted, its contents a bridge to his heart. She opened it anew, tracing the faded cover of The Adventures of Pinecone Bunny, Lily's cherished tale, and Ulysses explained softly. She memorized every word, demanding nightly reads. You love the girls with that same fierce devotion? Perhaps even more. Tessa's eyes met his, warm, yet uncertain, whispering, sometimes I fear I'm just filling a void from your loss. Ulysses shook his head, his face softening as he assured her, you're not a replacement, you're a new beginning, his words hanging in the air like a vow unspoken. Their hands brushed in the exchange, a spark igniting the space between them. Tessa's cautious smile reflecting the shifting emotions that promised more than fleeting shelter. Outside, the garden glowed faintly, the last reporters departing as peace settled. But inside, love germinated quietly, roots delving deeper with each shared glance and tender admission. The night passed in reflective calm, Tessa curling beside the sleeping twins, her mind alight with possibilities, while Ulysses paced the study, James's words echoing as he contemplated a future woven from healing threads. Sunlight dappled the picnic blanket under the old oak days later, crumbs from sandwiches scattering as Fiona and Freya chased bubbles across the grass, their wobbly legs carrying bursts of joy that filled the air with unbridled delight. Tessa lounged barefoot, sipping lemonade, her hair catching the breeze as she watched her daughters. Ulysses, sitting nearby cross-legged, his usual formality shed in this casual idyll that felt worlds away from corporate boardrooms. The outing marked a deliberate reclaiming of joy, the scandal's echoes fading under the estate's protective canopy, allowing space for genuine connection to flourish. Freya darted toward the stone path, her warning from Tessa coming a heartbeat too late as she tripped, scraping her knee with a sharp cry that pierced the tranquility. Ulysses moved swiftly, scooping her up before Tessa reached them, brushing dirt from her wound and murmuring, "It's okay, sweetheart. I've got you," his voice laced with paternal gentleness, honed from distant memories. Freya clung to his shirt through sobs, then uttered through tears, "Daddy!" The word freezing time as Ulysses's heart hammered, Tessa halting mid-step with wide eyes. Fiona echoed the call, rushing to hug his legs, their twin voices cementing a bond forged in unexpected moments. Ulysses sank to his knees, holding them close as tears streamed silently, the weight of loss mingling with newfound love in overwhelming waves. Tessa knelt beside, her eyes shining as she whispered, "They've never called anyone that before." And Ulysses looked up, his voice raw with emotion as he confessed, "I didn't expect to feel this deeply, but yes, I want to be part of your lives, not to fix the past, but to build our future." The picnic resumed in hushed wonder, the word "daddy" lingering like a sacred promise under the oak's shade. Evening cast a golden hue over the dining table, where a single purple orchid stood sentinel, its petals vibrant against the wood, a silent emblem Ulysses had placed without fanfare, evoking Lily's favorite bloom as a bridge to tomorrow. Tessa discovered it while setting plates, her fingers grazing the flower with understanding, meeting Ulysses's gaze from the doorway where he watched. Their silent exchange speaking volumes of commitment. After tucking the twins in with bunny tails from the book, they sat by the fireplace, Ulysses taking her hand across the space, declaring, "I don't want you to leave, ever." Tessa exhaled, relief mingling with concern as she replied, "And when the world questions us again? What then?" He squeezed her hand, eyes unguarded as he promised, "They'll know you're the woman who saved me, and we'll face it together. Time will tell our story." The fire crackled low, sealing their pact in warmth, the orchid a beacon of hope amid healing. Months unfurled like blooming orchids, the estate evolving from fortress to vibrant home, laughter echoing in mornings, and music spilling from the kitchen as Tessa pursued nursing studies anew, her textbook stacked by the door under Ulysses's encouraging gaze. She tied her shoes for orientation, nerves fluttering, but Ulysses assured her, "You'll be brilliant. They're lucky to have you." His kiss on her cheek, a talisman of support. Rosie, wait, the twins, dashed after with a lucky pen, Tessa twirling them in laughter as Ulysses watched from the porch, his chest full with the family they had become. The living room bore marks of change, stiff decor yielding to play tents and bookshelves brimming with children's stories. A central wall now adorned with the twins' crayon masterpiece. 3 figures, hand in hand under a crooked sun, labeled family in bold letters. Ulysses had framed himself. Tessa's touch had revived the garden, purple orchids clustering among fresh plantings, a tribute to Lily woven into their daily lives. One rainy afternoon on the patio, Ulysses brushed hair from Tessa's face, murmuring, "I used to dread the rain, but now it's a second chance." She leaned on his shoulder, replying, "I've feared goodbyes too long, but now I believe in tomorrows." Later, with the twins on his lap poring over a photo album, Ulysses whispered tales of zoos and goats, earning best daddy accolades that mended his soul. Alone in the garden that night, he knelt by the orchids, greeting Lily softly, the weight lifting as Tessa met him at the door, hand extended, affirming, "We're home, aren't we?" He nodded, stepping into warmth together, love's quiet triumph over grief's shadows. This tale of Tessa, Ulysses, Fiona, and Freya weaves a tapestry of resilience, healing, and unexpected love, blossoming from a stormy plea into a family forged by shared scars and hope. Did their journey touch your heart? Please share your thoughts below. Rate this story from 0 to 10, and let us know where you're joining us from. Thank you for listening, for opening your heart to their triumphs, and we can't wait to share another soul-stirring story with you soon.